Welcome to a world with limitless possibilities. A world where pain and suffering are matched only by the sounds of those who endure it. Welcome to your nightmare.
Welcome to your nightmare.
Hello everyone and welcome back to Nightmare. You know, usually we spend our time in the shadows of the unknown. We talk about the things that go bump in the night. The spirits, the cryptids, and the monsters that hide under the bed of our collective imagination. But tonight the monster is very real. And he didn't come from a legend. He came from the smog. In the autumn of 1888, the streets of Whitechapel weren't just dark. They were a hunting ground. This isn't a ghost story, though it's haunted us for over a century. This is a journey into the red work of a man who turned a city into a slaughterhouse and vanished before the blood could even dry. Tonight, we aren't looking for things that vanish in the light. We're looking for the man who thrived in it. The one who left a trail of wet ribbons and broken lives behind him. Lock your doors. Check the shadows. This is the story of the Autumn of Terror. This is Jack. The East End of London in 1888 did not breathe. It wheezed. It was a square mile of human misery, where 80,000 people lived in rooms built for a tenth of that number. The smell was a permanent physical weight, a cocktail of boiling cabbage, horse manure, and the copper tang of the slaughterhouses in Aldgate. But on the night of August 31st, a new scent joined the smog. Mary Ann Polly Nichols was walking down Bucks Row. The gas lamps were dim, mere pinpricks of sickly yellow light struggling against the pea super frog. She was looking for 4p, the price of a bed. Instead, she found him. The Reaper didn't just kill. He disassembled. When they found Polly, her throat had been severed so deeply the knife had reached the vertebrae. But it was the abdomen that made the veteran constables lose their morning tea. She had been jaggedly unzipped. The blade had been used with a frantic, rhythmic violence, leaving her innards exposed to the cold morning air like a butcher's display. This was the opening note of a symphony of gore. 8 days later, the escalation began. Annie Chapman was found in the backyard of 29 Hanbury Street. This time, the killer was surgical. He didn't just slash, he harvested. The throat was cut with such force that Annie was nearly decapitated. Her abdomen was entirely laid open. The killer had moved with a terrifying speed, lifting the intestines out and placing them over her right shoulder, a macabre decoration for the dead. But when the coroner looked closer, he turned pale. The uterus and parts of the bladder had been clearly excised and taken. This wasn't a common thug. This was someone who knew where the organs lived, someone who enjoyed the wet slide of a scalpel through muscle and fascia. The neighborhood went feral. Every man carrying a black bag was chased by a mob. They called him Leather Apron. They called him the Whitechapel Fiend. But soon, he would give himself a name. September 30th remains the bloodiest night in the history of the London fog. It started with Elizabeth Stride in Dutfield's yard. She was found with her throat still bubbling, warm blood pooling between the cobblestones. The killer had been interrupted by a passing cart. He hadn't had the time to finish. He was frustrated. He was hungry for the red work. He walked less than a mile to Mitre Square, where he found Catherine Eddowes. If the previous murders were crimes, this was a desecration. The Ripper transformed a human being into a pile of wet ribbons. He sliced her earlobes. He carved a V into each of her cheeks while she was still dying. He opened her from the pelvic bone to the breastbone in one continuous, agonizing pull. He reached inside the steaming cavity, bypassing the stomach, and cut out the left kidney. He took it with him, disappearing into the labyrinth before the police whistles could even echo. Later that week, a package arrived for Mr. George Lusk of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee. Inside was a small cardboard box, and inside that, half of a human kidney, preserved in wine. The letter attached began with 2 words that still chill the blood. From hell. The writer claimed he had fried and eaten the other half. He said it was very nice. The killing stopped for weeks. London began to exhale. Then came the rain of November 9th. Mary Jane Kelly was the youngest of the victims. She had a room, a tiny damp box at 13 Miller's Court. She thought she was safe behind a locked door. She was wrong. Because he had the privacy of a room, the Ripper took his time. When the landlord's assistant broke the window to check for the rent, he didn't see a body. He saw a room that had been painted red. Mary Jane was unrecognizable. The skin of her face had been peeled away in strips. Her breasts had been sliced off and placed under a bedside table. Her kidneys and heart were tucked under her head like a gruesome pillow. Her liver was placed between her feet. The killer had literally shredded her, spent hours in the dark with the sound of wet metal on bone, and then walked out into the morning rain as if he were headed to breakfast. And then the silence. The murders stopped as abruptly as they began. No one was ever charged. The leather apron became a ghost story. Some say he died in an asylum. Some say he was a royal whose family whisked him away to a private sanatorium. Some say he simply grew old, sitting in the pubs of London, listening to the people talk about the Ripper, while he felt the phantom weight of a scalpel in his pocket. The most disturbing thought isn't the gore. It's the anonymity. Jack the Ripper was a man who saw the world as a collection of parts, a puzzle of meat and bone. He lived in the shadows. He fed on the forgotten. And when he was done, he stepped back into the crowd. So next time you're in a crowded place, look at the person standing behind you. Look at their hands. You never really know what someone is capable of once the light goes out and the fog rolls in. that is all for this episode of Nightmare. I hope everyone enjoyed the story of Jack the Ripper as much as I did narrating it. He is one of my favorite all-time cold case stories. And if you have any suggestions for me, please reach out to me at nightmarepod@gmail.com. And as always, please like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram, and rate and review our show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And until next time, sleep well.